This morning's talk is titled, "What is this?" Very direct, specific question you could all ask any time that you're in any type of a quandary, or not, for that matter. You could look at anything that's arising, your own thought patterns, a truck pulling out in front of you at a stop sign, stop light, someone sitting in front of you having breakfast. You could actually bring up that kind of inquiry. Very, very simple, very direct. As I have said many times before, the why questions are circular. If you say why and whatever is arising, you immediately abandon what you're asking about and go into some kind of rationale or some kind of explanation or description or justification, validation, condemnation, etc. So what's being said here is to be very direct, to recondition yourself, you could say, to be inquisitive immediately in whatever is arising. In particular, this is valuable if you're having negative feelings with no justification, no rationale behind it. Quite often what we say is, instead of "what is this?" we say, "Why am I feeling this way?" This is circular. It's not that it won't pacify the intense negativity or difficulty that you're experiencing. It could pacify it somewhat, but it won't address it directly. Whereas what is this? And to not particularly get a response back that this is this or this is that, or is not such a bad situation. It's not like we need to get a response based on our preconceptions, based on our presumption, based on our expectation. You could say that also if you're doing sitting meditation, sitting down facing a wall. That could be a very basic inquiry. What is this? Meaning, what is the wall? What is the hearing that's happening from the birds outside or people walking in the hallway? A thought that is coming up about the breakfast you just had or the interaction you just had with someone else. What is that? What is it fundamentally? Not why is it so much, but what is it fundamentally? And it is not so much about getting an answer to that. It is about the attitude that occurs in your consciousness when you take that attitude of inquiry. What is this? That allows and conditions the consciousness to be on what? Receive. Because as soon as you say, "What is this?" you're automatically on receiving whatever is coming, which may not be satisfying, may not be the answer you're looking for, the answer you expect, and so on. And so what does this do? This cuts through the tendency to overthink things, overanalyze it. When I say over, I'm saying circles. Why is this happening? Because of this. And why did that happen? Because of that. And who did that? Who's to blame for that? Well, you are, because you didn't do such and such soon enough. You were late. You hesitated. Constant evaluation, commentary, judgment that gets us in a veritable what do they call those gardens that with the high shrubbery where you walk around and don't know where you're at?
Maze.
Yeah, maze. Thank you. It creates a maze of complex structures of maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe perhaps it's starting to look like this, but no, that's not it. Maybe this is it over here. Some kind of of a search, exploration going on that takes us away from what it was that was actually arising for us into some other kind of a maze or a complex of ideas, thoughts, opinions, hopes, fears, all the different things that are named that have to do with the way consciousness appears to us. So I'm saying the same thing. What is this? I could say it's a group of people, it's an audience, it's a sangha, it's a meditator, human beings, the opposite of aliens. Yes.
Is there a way to ask that question without the demand for an answer or the insistence on searching?
Yes, by the way that happens, to lessen the demand part and lessen the insistence on something filling up that openness that is at the other end of the inquiry, is repetition. Do it a lot. Repetition. You could say every time you sit down, what is this? If you go into why, it seems like, well, that why wouldn't why be valid? Wouldn't it be good to find out why you're doing things? Circular. Why? Because. Why is that? Because of that. Why? Because of that. Because of that. Because of that. It's just, it's not that it's wrong. It has a certain kind of relative correctness to it that gives us the illusion that we're getting somewhere.
What does that become, the questioning without receiving an answer, without insisting on an answer?
What is happening there is what is being prioritized is the awareness itself, not what arises in the awareness. We're as human beings, we're anxious for something else. This is the very nature. The Buddha, 2,500 years ago, basically said life is suffering. The cause is desire, wanting things to be different than they are. And the goal is cessation, and the path is basically meditation, discipline. So that inquiry that doesn't necessarily produce the conventional or expected result has a kind of value to it that is difficult to use a conceptual construct to explain it or define it or justify it. Lisa?
A lot of times an answer will pop up unbidden to that question if I'm sitting. What is this? Oh, that's the train.
Yes.
How do I not get lulled into a sense of, oh, that's all, I'm done now.
Mm-hmm. So the very way you ask a question tells me you're not probably not getting lulled, because you can't ask that kind of a question without having some kind of understanding of that's what's happening to you. So it's just a matter, in that same case, it's a matter of repetition. Continue to do that. You'll notice nothing lasts, nothing stays the same, and if you can find something that repeats itself, I'd like to hear about it. Because the whole idea of repetition is misunderstood. Nothing actually happens twice. Yes?
Based on what you just said, when you say repetition is important in the practice, what is repetition in practice?
It's doing the same thing over and over again, which is impossible to do. But the awareness that you're seeing, like every time, look, all the years you've been practicing sitting meditation, how have you found that now that you meditate over and over and over again, that you're just doing the same thing over and over? Not actually. I think it looks that way when a person begins, when you first start sitting, because of the boredom. Because there seems to be with sitting meditation, initially there seems to be kind of an excitement about you're doing something new, something different. Maybe this will really help me. Maybe this will help me deal. We start to add on thoughts about it. But then when we eventually settle down into the actual process of the practice of meditation itself, which may take some time, you may have to meditate, you may have to pretend to meditate for a long time before you actually begin to just be present and just be with whatever's arising. Sent you.
When looking at something and asking what it is it possible that we'll never land
The-
on what it is?
Yeah, very possible. But what that's actually doing is working directly with the awareness or with the area of the mind that actually houses, contains, or supports, or the spaciousness of the mind is being emphasized. So the awareness itself is being emphasized. But we don't know that because it's not a relative situation that's happening. Awareness does not belong to anyone. It's not a relative situation. So by doing that, you could say, the word I sometimes use is stretching the awareness, just like when you sit down and practice sitting meditation. Over time, you're starting to stretch or enhance or reprioritize not so much what arises in the mind stream, but the mind stream itself, the openness to a very quiet. It's like the metaphor I often use and is used traditionally is the sky. The mind is like the sky. Thoughts are like clouds. They come and go. The sky doesn't do anything. And no matter how horrible, difficult the tsunami is, the weather, it never leaves a mark on the sky. It can't affect it.
A question from
Yes.
Tayo up in Traverse City.
Mhm.
How can we see what something is when it is in a constant state of fluctuation?
So that's seeing what it is. What you're seeing is you're seeing, what is this? You're seeing a constant state of fluctuation. And that's a description of what happens, so that you've actually added something onto it. To see the constant state of fluctuation without interpreting it, without knowing what it is, without calling it, because this is what happens. You're sitting, and this is just a way of talking about it. You're sitting, you're seeing a constant state of fluctuation, and you name it that. As soon as you name it, the investigation about the fluctuation that you just named stops, because now you have something. Now it's a German Shepherd. All investigation stops. Of course, it's not a German Shepherd. It's a constant state of fluctuation. Yes, Brittany.
It seems that often those labels or naming of things come even unbidden.
Yes.
It's not, I don't try to say, oh, that's a cloud,
Yes,
but it happens, so.
It does.
How do we work with that as our practice too?
that it's the same practice. It's just what you're telling me by talking about that and addressing that as I sense as an issue. It's not an issue. It's just what arises. And if nothing is fueled by saying this is right, this is wrong, if there's no evaluation, no picking and choosing going on, but you're just present. The idea here, using the metaphor of the sky, just function like a sky. Be the sky. And don't necessarily be the clouds. In other words, don't identify with the negativity, positivity, neutrality of clouds coming and going. You want to identify just sky, just an open dimension of being, that there's no plus or minus or anything. And then those things may arise, they may not. But there's no extra commentary. Something arises, and there's nothing extra. And if there is something extra, there's nothing extra to that. So it could be a real choo-choo train, or not. Michael.
So is the question what it is, the primer for observation?
Yes. So what is this? And if something, you could even take it a little further and say, whatever arises, if something does arise, you could say, what is that? And if something else arises, like a description of that, you could say, what is that? You could just continue to do that, or not, or don't do that. Yes.
So is any answer then, and then adding on?
It may be. But then again, to jump the gun and go into what, if any, answer comes up to already know that that's going to be adding on. That may be going too far. Just don't do anything with it. Just be there and watch what happens. Maybe things will arise. Maybe they won't. Maybe some kind of a response in the form of an answer will arise. Maybe it won't. But you know, each person in here, each person that's listening or watching, you're bringing all of your past karma, all of your past lives. And I don't necessarily believe in past lives. I'm not here to promote anything. But all of the past things that are in an apparent past are completely present. And it is your job, you could say, if you decide to function as a human being who is trying to train their mind to see clearly what is true, which is what this is about. Generic description of this is practicing to see what is true yourself. There's nothing here to believe or disbelieve. Nothing that's being promoted other than train your mind. More questions?
How could you use this practice when relating to the teacher?
I think it would be different for each person. Each person is functions as a student in a different way. The teacher doesn't necessarily function as a teacher unless he or she has a student. So if you present yourself as a student, then the person who is who has an understanding about what this is can function as a teacher. So asking questions. You know, what is this? How do I work with this? Just like you're doing now. Is there something specific? Okay. Yes.
What is the greatest thing you get from teaching other people?
What do I get from teaching? A lot of people think I'm really cool. I think it's to be more direct. I think it's just feeling that if someone, a feeling of appropriateness, that someone comes, they ask you about what's happening with their working with their negativity, and you come out of your understanding of, in my situation, having done this for a while, I have some understanding about working with the mind since I've been doing it a long time, and also working with students who are dealing with their mental processes, their hopes, their fears, all of that, is to support them. If I can communicate with them in such a way that I'm supporting them so that they can see for themselves what is true, rather than convert them over to being a Buddhist or something like that. In other words, helping people, fundamentally. Not meddling with them, not necessarily giving them advice. My only advice is train your mind. And in order to say any more than that, you would have to ask questions. Is that helpful?
Yes.
You have a specific question about it?
Like how do I become, like, how do I explain myself
To who?
to anybody? I feel like in society we all need this label and this mask. And you know, for me, there's so much going on that it's sometimes it's difficult for me to choose a path.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, meditation, like you explained, is that discipline.
Yeah, stop trying to explain it. Don't concern yourself too much with making yourself clear to others. Find out who you are, and let other people deal with their own dynamic. Find out who you are. And the other thing that I say is train your mind so that you can see clearly who you are, what this actually is, without any doubt. You don't have to check in with anybody else to see what you're doing. And if somebody is critical of you, it's usually based on their ignorance rather than their insight into you. If someone can really see who you are, they will stop meddling with you. someone can really see what's actually happening with you, they will trust you to do what you need to do for yourself. Each person is completely responsible for themselves, even though there's no such thing as a separate self. Separate self is, or ego is, unreal. Further questions would be good. Yes.
The why question. Is that somehow equivalent to cause and effect?
Why question? Yes. Just play into that. There's always a response. Why? Because. Why is there this? Because there's that. Anytime you have this, you're going to have that. So the why, because, why. It's not wrong. It's just that's okay. We got that figured out. Now let's say what it is. Let's see what it is. Let's go to the identity part of it. That's where the confusion, the foundation of the confusion. Mistaken identity seems to be the foundation of the whole thing. Thinking there's a solid me who can win or lose, or a solid other who can win or lose, or get ahead of me, or fall behind, or help me or not help me, or threaten me. We see it everywhere. It's just constant on different levels of conflict, warfare, argument, football games. Just warfare, polarity, all the time. And what's being said as far as the spiritual path is you're on your own with the help of a teacher, possibly, if you give that person permission, the help of a sangha, or a community of people who are also on a spiritual path.
How would you use the what question in relationship to the Dharma?
What question?
What is the Dharma?
How would I use it?
Or is using it an adding?
No, you could say what is. So what happens when you say that?
For me, I have to go study somewhere.
All right, go for it. Question.
Another question from Tayo in Traverse
Yes.
City. He asks, for me, questions create space that mind quickly fills. How can I hold the space while receiving mind's projection?
Don't try to hold the space. Stop trying to manipulate what happens. But just the awareness is the first thought, or the first idea there is already appropriate. You don't need to do anything more. Let the space fill up. That's still awareness. We're not looking at trying to keep an open space so much as we're trying to see what this is. It may fill up, it may not fill up. It may start to smell, it may start to sound funny, all the sense fields are open and receive. Put all of your sense fields, sight, smell, sound, taste, touch, thinking, all on receive, including the thought patterns. Allow thought patterns to come and go without adding on, without taking away, and keep that same sense of inquiry. What? You heard a bird, instead of just immediately naming, well, that's like Unyo does, well, that's what is that kind of bird you like? Cardinals. She'll hear a cardinal. That's a cardinal. I correct her. I say, no, that's just a sound that you're, don't I say that? I don't say that. I say that is? That's a cardinal? Yes,
A question from Brian in White Plains, New York.
it's Brian.
He asks, who am I?
Find out. That's it's called Atma Vichara. That's a ancient technique for self-inquiry, a spiritual path connected with Advaita, non-duality, Hinduism, various. Who am I? well, this actually goes directly to the identity itself. It's very similar to saying, what is this? What is this? Anything that's arising. Sense of self, sense of hope, sense of fear, sense of bland, uninteresting, beige donuts, all coming up with bites taken out of them. What is that? What is that? What is the feeling that you wake up in the morning that you sometimes have of, I don't know if you'd call it despair, but just some kind of, another day of this? Find out. When I say find out, say investigate, set up you probably won't do it casually, but you can do it, you can intend to find out what that is, set up a situation where you get up and instead of just being on default the rest of the day, just receiving all the crap that shows up in your head based on beginningless time or all of the things that are happening in your particular milieu. Sit down and look at what is receiving it. Yes.
What is family, and do we owe them certain respect?
So you're asking me a question. You're giving me permission to respond to you, or I couldn't, because I would never tell you this without you asking me. But you owe them nothing. You don't owe them anything. That's a misunderstanding. I'm not saying you shouldn't help your mom or help your brother or be with them or be supportive, but as far as owing anything, this is a circularity that is that you can go on lifetime after lifetime doing this. I owe, now you owe me. Now I owe you, now you owe me. Never get to the spiritual path. Always, it's always materialism over and over, trying to get somewhere through the material world. You cannot get anywhere here. The only thing, and I don't mean to be negative or pessimistic, but the only thing that's going to happen next is death. I mean, that's what's going to happen. It's not that you can't party down, Vern. Isn't that his name?
Wayne.
Wayne. I don't mind being corrected. Oh, party on, Wayne. Party on. Yeah, I like those guys.
Vern.
Yeah. Was I wrong?
How do we show respect?
Yes.
You know, to certain people, whether it's professors or.
Well, you can just do that. Just be respectful. Just be respectful.
Mhm.
But you don't have to follow their orders or their lead. They're living their life. You can listen. And if they give you advice or suggestions, say, that's interesting. I'll consider that. So you should be respectful, but you don't necessarily have to do what they say, if that's what you're asking me.
Okay.
If you want to talk about some kind of responsibility, the responsibility is to yourself. Liberate yourself from your own confusion, your own mind. Liberate yourself. Find a way to do that. It doesn't have to be this way. I'm not here to sell anything. When you leave here, forget everything I said, if you can. Bailey.
What is respect?
Respect is seeing the natural boundary between yourself, you're a parent, this situation and that situation. It's like the way leaves respect roots. Natural hierarchy. If you see it, it's natural to be respectful of other people's clarity and their confusion. Difficult, because we see someone else's confusion and we project our own dissatisfaction with ourselves onto them, and then we try to fix them. This is quite often what parents will do. Instead of actually allowing this, feeding this person, protecting this person, stay out of the road, don't play with broken glass, come in when the street lights come on. Job done. And then what happens from there on is their particular life, their karma. And it's very similar with friends that are having difficulty with this, that, or the other thing. listen, but don't necessarily offer suggestions too much. Maybe a little bit, if you're really asked, like this gentleman here is asking. So I'm saying, you don't know them. And I could give a whole talk on that topic, probably. Responsibility. The ability to respond does not mean you're to blame. Praise and blame are, in the Buddhist teachings, praise and blame are misunderstandings of the nature of reality. There is no one to blame for anything, nor does anyone get credit for anything. Just because you're born with a beautiful voice, you can sing and make millions of dollars, you do not get credit for that. That person will also pass into, from the physical form, pass back into non-existence. More? Did I? Okay. Yes, sir.
What is hope and what are the pitfalls?
So hope, as it's taught and understood in the Buddhist teachings, is the opposite of that is fear. Hope and fear, hope and fear. So hope is a way of describing it is to abandon the present moment as it is. What is this? And go into some kind of idea about the possibilities of some future situation where everything might be cool and everything is going to be okay. It's not wrong to do that, but it seems to be necessary to see that you're abandoning the present moment for some, what is the word? Cake in the sky? Is that it? Come on, correct me.
Pie.
Pie, yeah. Pie R square? No, Johnny Cake are round? Is that it? Anybody watch the Beverly Hillbillies? No? You guys are all too young.
Long time ago.
So hope and fear, it's two sides. Is hope and fear. In Buddhism, those are called the bandits of hope and fear, ambush wisdom and take her down so she can't see clearly. And she's like a centaur. She sees, she travels and she sees everything very clearly. And hope and fear come out of the bushes and try to take her down. She just keeps going. She's a horse. They're just gremlins. Hope, fear, they look alike. Yes.
A few moments ago you said something about hierarchy. When I imagine the idea of hierarchy, it looks like a ladder.
It's like a what?
More like a ladder.
Okay.
Now I have more of a vague understanding that the world is more linear. We're each connected, and also dependent and also independent. We are connected but not dependent on one another. And because we are all perfect and complete on our own as our own beings, there is not necessarily no one has more or less value than another. Would that be more appropriate? Would that be an appropriate assessment to like an appropriate sort of view?
Concept?
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more depth there that can be looked into, but no one's any higher. But there's a natural hierarchy that occurs that is, I think I used the leaves. The leaves don't envy the roots. The little finger doesn't envy the thumb. They work together. They don't even have to even talk to each other. So it's that kind of a thing. It's communication and cooperation, and sometimes when we're using our operating with our thinking process and everything and trying to accomplish things together, be together, live together, support each other. Sometimes the bandits of hope and fear come in and scare us into grabbing off more than maybe we should, or disturbing things in such a way that the flow and the cooperation and the kind of comes to a halt because of fear, because people are afraid to just be present and be open. Further questions? Or do we quit now?
Well, we have two more questions.
Okay.
Anna Maria from Brooklyn
Yes.
asks, it's a little difficult to understand, what is or can be hope in this moment?
Read it again, please.
What is or can be hope in this moment?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Hope is something we add on or create because we're not willing to look at what this situation is. We would rather say, well, what gives you hope? Let's look off for something else.
She says, i.e. the spirit of hope that does not leap one from this moment.
Oh, okay. That's not hope.
Another question from Brian out in White Plains. How do we work with the fear of death?
Die. Die now. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at something else that just happened.
Shane from California has a question.
Yes.
How do you turn the more difficult why questions into what questions?
Yeah, that's good. I think it's just a matter of repetition. It's a willingness to keep coming back to square one. What is this? What is this? And notice that when you go off on the proverbial tangent into, well, why is that? You know, having a negative feeling. Why am I feeling that way? It's not that there isn't some value to asking why. We're not trying to get rid of that altogether, but to see that there's a difference between asking why, and there's a difference between that and asking what is something fundamentally. If you say why, then you actually are talking about the preconceptions about that situation that have not been investigated. So it seems to be necessary to do that through repetition. Sitting practice of meditation seems to be very necessary to do that. Are we going to the next session now? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. You can announce them.
So we'll stand and dedicate the merit, which is in the back of your blue chant books. I'd also like to remind everybody about our donation boxes that are in the hallway. Please help us as you can.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-ho-san shi-shi-hu, shi-son mu-sa-mo-ko-sa. The three worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.